But my main day-to-day job is as a full-time professional bike fitter under the name Bike Fitter. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah, despite my Australian accent. I'm actually a US citizen, you'll be pleased to know as well. So my day
we won't deport you.
My day in, day out work is seeing people come in the door with a bike to get a fit. And in my spare time, which is my day off, I attend to the fit system sort of orders and side of business. Now, someone came up with this title, The Metrics That Matter. It wasn't me, but I started thinking about it. And it's like, well, what are the metrics that matter to people owning, operating, managing, running bike shops? And for me, and you might be thinking, given that we're talking about bike fit here, leg angles, body angles, stance width, handlebar width, you know, I think the key metric that matters is that your customer enjoys and continues to enjoy riding their bicycle. Because if that doesn't happen, nothing else happens. If that does happen, they're going to stay engaged in the sport. The presentation, who was at the breakfast yesterday? Keynote presentation, only a few of you as a fabulous round of speakers, and People for Bikes have got a big initiative in terms of engaging and re-engaging people in the sport. Some of those who came in and left is because they weren't enjoying the cycling experience for whatever reason. So we want to keep people who've come into the sport engaged in the sport, and if they do that, they're going to keep coming back to your store, they're going to be looking for mechanical repairs, services, spare parts, accessories, new shoes, cycling kit, and so the cash register keeps ringing. But if they're not, if that first metric is not met and they're not enjoying themselves, then you are unlikely to see that customer again. So, doing a little reference to my notes here and there. So in my day job as a bike fitter, everyone that comes in, I ask them where they purchased their bike. And you may be surprised to know that probably 80% of it is through their local bike shop. There's probably 15% have bought a used bike, typically online. Very few people have actually bought a new bike online. So the vast majority of people are still buying their bike through their local bike shop. And then I say, well, how was the experience? You know, have you had a fit before? And they're like, well, I had this bike shop bike fit. And that's a thing. There's different sorts of bike fit out there in the eye of the consumer, in the eye of the customer. And there's kind of an independent professional bike fit service, but there's the bike shop bike fit. And depending on the bike shop and the fit, that service varies quite a bit. And I'd like you to think, if you offer bike fit, you know, how many stars are your customers giving you for that? Now, you might have a 5-star shop, but is the fitting service that you offer 5-star as well, or is that something different? And I'd say that many of the people I see, I wouldn't see them. They would not come in the door as a bike fit customer of mine if they had a 5-star experience at their local bike shop. I would say they're probably getting a 2 or 3-star experience with regard to the bike fit when they purchase a new bike. You know, the rest of it might be fabulous, but when it comes to the fit, they're like, well, you know, the person sort of put me on, set the seat, had me ride around the parking lot, said you look good, and away you go. And now my hands are numb, or my butt's sore, or my feet are going to sleep, or whatever it might be. And it's like, well, did you go back and speak to them? Well, you know, the kid who helped me didn't really seem to know what to offer. So there's kind of a lack of trust or credibility or a sense of expertise there. So I know how many stars I get because Google tells me. 5 stars. So that's nice, and I'd like you to be aiming for 5 stars, you know, not just in your shop overall, but in the sub-services that you might offer, like bike fitting. So, quick recap, what is fitting? Essentially, this is my little definition. It's a process of fine-tuning the relationship between the cyclist and their bike. And there's 2 critical areas. There's where you contact directly with the bike, and then there's that relationship between those various parts. So, you know, what's a knee angle, what's a leg extension, what's an upper body angle, that sort of thing. So the purpose of today is to not solve problems, not necessarily say, well, someone's coming in with numb hands, what do we do about that? It's saying, okay, you've got a customer, they're buying a brand new bike, what can we do to What can we do to set up for them initially? So we want to establish what I consider a starting riding position. This may change, the fit position may change over time. The rider obviously needs to spend time on the bike and prove it out. There may be subsequent refinement. But the big thing I want you to think about is you want to prevent problems from rolling out the door on that new bike. And if you prevent problems, you're increasing that enjoyment. So, what sort of problems? There's really two categories of problems. Numbness, numb butt, numb undercarriage, sleepy peepee. There's various other names for things out there. Numb hands, numb feet. And then the other thing are parts that protest and complain and ache. It might be knees, it might be hot feet, it might be shoulder tension and things like that. So both of these categories are problems people experience if they're new to cycling or if they're returning to cycling, or they've had maybe they're someone who's been on a commuter bike, maybe a flat bar commuter bike for years and they want a drop bar road bike, and so they're getting onto that. These are the sort of problems people commonly experience, and a lot of them can be cut off at the pass with care and attention to your customer and the bicycle and the parts on the bicycle and that initial setup from the get-go. So in terms of initial fit, and this is a slide from what I did last year, we've got a simple process. We want to look at feet, shoes, pedals. We want to look at the saddle in terms of its appropriateness for that rider. And we want to look at the handlebars and the handlebar position. So we've got kind of two layers here. We've got the component itself, the shoes and cleats, and then the relationship of the foot to the pedal. We've got the saddle itself, the relationship to the body and then the saddle positioning, and we've got the handlebars themselves and the handlebar positioning. So we kind of want to work through that. So what I'm going to do is let's talk up here and more working with a new bike and someone who's decided they'd like to buy this, and we're going to work through some of these points. So my fit process takes about 3 hours. I have like 45 minutes here to do this. So I'm not going to be doing a full fit in terms of my in-studio process. I'm going to be sort of just picking and choosing a few things to sort of highlight points. And what I want to focus on are areas where I think you have the opportunity to lift your service level and lift the experience of the customer. So they ride out the door and they get on Google and they give you 5 stars for that experience. And things to prevent problems. Bicycles. I'm going to give a shout out here to Bianchi for supplying a bicycle for this demonstration this morning. Bianchi are one of the very few, actual bicycle brands still exhibiting in Interbike. Thank you, Bianchi, for showing up and bringing actual bikes to look at. You know, that's fabulous. And I hit them up last week and say, hey, would you have a bike you could offer up for the Fit Symposium? It's like, yes, and that's great. Here it is. So I'm not that acquainted with the model. I've got the bike. Now, one thing I know about bikes is that if it's more than a few $100 bike, it doesn't come with pedals, which, you know, and there's historical reasons why new bikes don't come with pedals, but really in this day and age it's BS, and that shouldn't be the case, and I think there's opportunity for industry change in terms of why a new bike doesn't have pedals. So we've dropped some pedals on here, and they're just going to be flats for our exercise today. But if the bike doesn't come with pedals, why does it come with a saddle? Because there's an 80% chance the saddle's not going to work for the person sitting on it. And so why does it come with handlebars? Because they're probably not the appropriate width for the rider either. And I think the only reason it comes with handlebars is to give somewhere to hang the cables and brakes and shifters, so they're not just sort of draped there. And so really the future, or a potential future of bike retail, is selling frame and then drivetrain, wheel set, cockpit, saddle, and getting those fit-related components and putting them together. I think that could be the next area of online bike retail, is that customised bike build where it's being parted together. Someone mentioned crank length. Is this crank length appropriate for the rider that's going to get on it? Maybe. To some people, maybe not. And so, you know, if you're going to leave off the pedals, leave off the rest of the parts and let's help the customer kind of piece it together with components that are going to suit them. So that's my offering for the future there. Okay, Alfonso. I've managed to recruit hopefully a willing helper here for this exercise. Alfonso's a brief word. Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Seattle.
Seattle?
I own the Lopez Bike Fit. Been fitting for 5 years.
Okay, so I've recruited a fellow bike fitter here for the exercise. Hopefully he'll be obliging, compliant, willing.
The shirt matches my shirt.
We have a Bianchi size 69 centimetre frame here. Now, you can see that Alfonso showed up in his best cycling kit and his cycling shoes. Now, so in other words, he's a typical customer that walks into a bike shop to buy a new bike shop. He's in his street clothes, he's in his charcos, and he's ready to buy a new bike. Okay, so that's what we're working with. The first slide is feet and pedals. So what I'd like to do, Alfonso, is, do you have cycling shoes? Or would you like to purchase some cycling shoes?
I have some at home.
You have some at home. Excellent. All right. So I'm going to make some assumptions here that we have Alfonso cycling shoes. And so you've been riding on cleats?
Yes.
Yes, excellent. So he's not new to being clicked in. If he'd had more advanced notice, he would have had his shoes and cleats here, and we have some pedals and we put them on. But everyone I see, and I work on cleat position, I ask them, and I grab their cycling shoes. What cycling shoes? Why is the cleat, how is this cleat where it is? Is this being carefully set up and considered? And what's the answer?
No.
The answer is no. It's like, who put it on? Oh, the guy at the bike shop. Did he measure your feet? No, he just screwed it on there. Oh, okay. Mind if I take a look at where it is and maybe make some changes? It's like, go right ahead. Fantastic. So we're going to take a look at Alfonso's feet, and I want to give you a little exercise to do, and just a way to kind of do a little bit more for your customer in terms of shoe and cleat position. But before I get to cleat, I want to look at shoes. So Alfonso, I'd like to measure up your feet here. If you could take your charcos off for a moment. So I'm going to use a running device. Who has one of these in their shop? If you don't get one, if you sell shoes, you really need one. And so this will give us length, width, a little bit of extra information. I'd like to just do a right foot, or let's start with the left foot. I'll do a left foot on here, and just move that across for me. Need some glasses. We've got an unweighted length of, I'm using European here, 49. Stand up for me, please, Alfonso. I want to get a weighted length. This guy's got a long foot. He's still holding steady at 49, so no foot elongation under load. Sit down for me, please. I'll lift that up and change feet. We'll drop that on there. 48.5. Stand up for me. 49. And although his feet look huge for the length, they are a BC width, which is fairly narrow. Sit down for a moment. So what I've got here is a foot that's holding steady. It's not collapsing under load. That's good. If it was collapsing under load, we might have a discussion about aftermarket insoles to offer more in-shoe support. If he was measuring up as a DE width, and we had a chat about some foot numbers in the past, we'd be talking about a wider cycling shoe. How many of you stock a wide model cycling shoe in your store? Not enough. How many cyclists have wide feet?
Lots.
A lot. One of the easy problems to solve with feet is having enough room for the foot in the shoe, and traditional cycling shoes are fairly narrow, and Bigfoot Americans don't have narrow feet. So even if you just had one brand, one model that came in a wide and you had a size run of that, you've got sales opportunity there and you can be addressing problems from the get-go. I've pretty well never come across wide shoes in a shop. Maybe someone has CD Megas. That's about the only one that might commonly be stocked, but Shimano make a wide, Lake make a wide. Other companies make some wides.
Can I ask a question actually? So if you don't carry shoes at all, do you see wisdom in bringing in just a size run of a one wide model so you have that option in your studio?
In my studio, I
repeat the question?
actually order Lake shoes, one pair at a time, which Lake are willing to support, so I don't stock an inventory run of Lake cycling shoes, but if I see a customer with particularly wide feet and solving feet problems are an issue, I'll be measuring them up and talking about and ordering in a Lake cycling shoe, typically in a wide for them, and then having them back in to set up the cleats, and we'll probably be doing an insole as well. So, but it's worth, if you're a retail store and you're carrying shoes, it's definitely worth having a wide to offer people, because a lot of folks have wide feet. That's a big issue. But Alfonso's good. Narrow of foot, it's long. We're out at like a size 49 here, so big foot. Yeah. All right. So, let's say he's got his cycling shoes. We wanted, now, two options here. This person already has shoes, and they've already got cleats, and they're in good condition, or they're new to, or they need new shoes and new cleats. Either way, you have the opportunity to set those cleats up or check the existing setting. So how do we want to do that? What I would like each of you to do is to take a shoe off, because I want you to palpate your own foot here. So I want a shoe taken off, and I want you to find, firstly, the easy part, the ball of your big toe. So that lump, some of you will be lumpier than others. Some of you will have the big bunion on the ball of your big toe. So I want you to feel where that is. It's just going to be the lightest bit sticking out on the inside. But then I want you to go to the other side and feel the ball of the little toe. And there'll be a little bump there as well. So it's your metatarsal head. And what I do with that, with a customer, is drop your feet down there, Alfonso. So I'm going to have you put your shoes on in a moment.
You want to do it on the stage?
It's a great idea.
Stage. Come on up. So, let's say, it doesn't matter if your shoes on, socks on, socks off here, but initially I want the shoes off, so I'm going to feel through your shoes for the ball of your big toe on the inside and the ball of your little toe on the outside. So, these two places here. So I then have the customer put their shoe on. And you need some advanced technology to do this. You need this, and you need this. It's a big investment, but I think you're up for it. A roll of masking tape and a Sharpie. And so, we're going to pretend Alfonso has shoes on here. I'm going to grab some masking tape. Masking tape. Helps to have good quality masking tape. From Ace Hardware. I'll give our keynote speaker from yesterday a shout out. Ace Hardware masking tape. We're going to run a little strip along the inside of the shoe and the outside of the shoe. Inside of shoe, outside of shoe, and we're going to use this to notate on with our Sharpie. So, what I want to do is just feel, and you can do this with your feet, with your shoes back on, feel along the inside of the shoe for that first metatarsal head, that big bump. And then just do a little line with the Sharpie. Same on the outside. Feel along the outside of your shoe. Do a little line. Change sides. Change sides. We do have video. Okay. So we now have a mark on the inside and a mark on the outside. And we then take the shoe off. And given the shoe, I'm just going to do this over here on some other shoes. And I'm going to say that's there and that's there. So we now have let's say a shoe with a mark on the outside and a mark on the inside of that first and fifth metatarsal head. And we want to see, well, where are those two things in relation to the centre of the cleat or the centre of the pedal axle? Now, if we went back 10 or 15 years, the rule of thumb in bike fitting was put the centre of the cleat under the first metatarsal head, or the ball of the big foot. But we come forward to present time, and our general rule of thumb is to divide the distance between those two places and go to the centre or bias more towards the fifth metatarsal head. So what's happening is that we're moving the foot further over the pedal now compared to what we traditionally used to do in bike fitting. We're spreading out the load over more of the skeletal structure of the foot. We're taking some pressure out of the metatarsal heads, and we're preventing some problems doing that. That'll probably work for 95% of people. There's always an exception. But is that something you think you can do? Get a roll of masking tape and a Sharpie, feel through the customer cycling shoes for the ball of the foot on the inside and the outside, mark that up, have them take their shoe off, see where the cleat is, look for the centre line or the centre mark on the cleat, and then bias that centre line towards the fifth metatarsal head, towards that little toe ball of the foot. So that's looking at our cleat forward and aft position. There's a lot of different adjustments to cleat position, but this is the big one just to get going from the first place, and that can really prevent numb toes. If that cleat's too far forward, it puts a lot more pressure into the front of the foot. It can lead to a compensatory toe pointing pedaling style because the person's trying to create stability because they're attached to the pedal out on the end of a lever, whereas if we shorten that lever, we're creating more stability without having to fire up muscles and toe point to create that. Our second key cleat position is rotation. So now the old Italian approach to cycling was knees in close to the top tube, feet straight, pedal like a machine. Now if your body was built that way, well and good, but if it wasn't, that doesn't work so well. So we want to have this foot on the pedal rotated and allowed to rotate in a way that caters to the natural gait and pedaling style of the person. So one simple way to do that, and let's see, Alfonso, could you stand up for me? I'd just like you to walk on the spot there for a moment. Alfonso's walking on the spot, got a good bit of suspension in this stage, and come to a stop. And so what's his foot orientation look like up here? Equally, or?
It's hard to tell from this angle.
Hard to tell. It looks like his right foot's maybe out a little further than the left, but he's not major duck foot. He's not toed in. He's got a natural little bit of rotation and maybe a little bit more on the right. And this is something you can have your customer do: is walk on the spot or walk. Sometimes there's going to be a difference between cycling, pedaling, and walking gait. But as a starting point, you can look at how people walk and naturally stand. And if they walk like a duck, they're probably going to pedal like a duck. And so we want to set the rotation up for that.
Do you have any preference in pedals?
No, I don't.
Can you repeat the question? Will you repeat the question?
Do I have any preference in pedal systems? I think was the question. There's pros and cons to all of them, but I don't have a strong personal preference. In my case, I don't sell pedals, and pretty well everyone I see comes in the door already with pedals, so I work with what I get.
What about having them sitting on the bench where they're like just hanging down?
Yes, that can be a way to do it, and that can.
Will you repeat the question again?
Thanks, Curtis. Could we have people sitting on a bench with their feet hanging off the edge? And we just have a look there. That could be a way to assess rotation. We can actually also do that with them on the bike as well in a creative way.
Just make sure you're not mistaking that for IT bands.
Yeah. So there are mitigating circumstances. There are other factors that play into this. So this is not a black and white absolute, but it's a starting point guideline. In the absence of more sophisticated information or assessment techniques, at least you're thinking about it, and you're taking a look at your client as their gait pattern, and you're seeing if that might be well reflected in their pedaling style. Once they're clicked in, we want to check that on the bike. So what I have people do once they're in and pedaling is get them to heel in and heel out and explore the float range while they're pedaling. And I want to know if they feel they can go equidistant, heel out and heel in from what's neutral, or if they get hung up going one way and not the other. Then I'll make a change. So I'm using the cyclist feedback to go, do you feel any constraint in terms of pedaling naturally? Can you move your heel out and in, or can you go one way but not the other? So we'll do a theoretical cleat rotation off the bike initially, but we then want to confirm and validate that on the bike with the rider's feedback. Okay. Who's already using some masking tape and a Sharpie and feeling for the first and fifth metatarsal heads Excellent. Who thinks they could add that to their repertoire fairly easily? I think so. And just, practice on your shop staff, practice on yourself. Typically, you can just feel through the cycling shoe and you'll feel those points. Sometimes, a lot of times it's obvious. Sometimes you have to ask the customer, hey, is this the ball of your little toe? And they're like, further forward, further back, that's it. So don't be afraid to ask for help from the customer when you're actually doing that. Curtis, anything more on the feet, you think?
Go for it. You're
Okay, all right. Thanks, Alfonso. Safely clamp it down from there. You can de-tape. I'm pretty good at sending people out the door with masking tape still attached to their cycling shoes. Excellent.
great. John, what happens if you don't accommodate for rotation?
If you don't accommodate for that rotation, you're setting your cyclist up for knee aches and pains, because if twisting action is being enforced from the feet up, then it's going to show up in the knees. So again, we want to address rotation and not just the fore and aft, because otherwise we're sending a potential problem out the door and the person may or may not, but has a good chance of getting achy knees. Yes?
If they have like severe crow's feet, sometimes their heels are going to hit the frame of the bike.
Okay, what do we do about that? So if somebody's really splayed out, then it's likely their heel is going to contact the chainstays. We could use a pedal washer spacer to add a little bit of stance width clearance there. We can move the cleats laterally, so if we move the cleats in, we're moving the feet out. So we need to increase their stance width with the cleat positioning. If that's not enough, we have an extra pedal spacer washer down there, and that's usually enough to do it. If they're a super chronic case, we might go to something like a bike fit 20mm pedal spacer, pedal extender, or if they were speed play pedals, we could do a longer spindle length on a speed play and a couple of other brands to create that clearance. Hydration. Okay, so pretty well, a lot of bike shops are just grabbing the shoes, slapping the cleats on at the workbench, handing them back to the rider and saying, have a good life. So I'd like to see, I'd like the bar to be lifted on that in terms of how that's done and to provide that better cleat positioning. There's a lot more to it. There's potentially shimming and wedging and other aspects, but if we can just get the basics to a higher level, that's a strong start. If we can pay attention to that forward back and that rotation, we're doing well, and check chainstay clearance once they're on the bike. Okay, next. Saddle. We've got this nice new bike. It's got a sexy looking saddle on it, but I'm not 100% sure it's going to be the right shape and width for you. So if it's okay, I'd like to do a sit bone measurement and just see what your pelvic structure looks like and compare that to the saddle. All right, so what we have here is what's colloquially known as an arsometer. This one's from Montrager. So what I'd like to do in just a moment is sit yourself on here, try and center your butt on the platform, put your feet under your knees, lean forward with a straight back a little bit, grab the rails here, push down, pull up. And sandwiched in the middle will be my butt Etch-a-Sketch pad. Okay, so perch on there, feet forward a little bit.
Love the wiggle, Alfonso.
So I often find with when we have in the studio is if I don't have them wiggle, the bone's in the wrong place. I don't know why.
Okay, hands behind you on the rails. I want you to pull firmly up with your hands and drive down with your pelvis. Just lean forward with a straight back a little bit. Okay. Now, let's see, you get a better readout in street clothes than you do with a cycling kit. You'll still get a good readout if someone's wearing cycling shorts with a chamois. Stand on up for me. All right, so we can see here we have a nice indentation of Alfonso's butt. And we know this is every woman's favourite body measurement because everyone's concerned about big butt, but it's like, hey, that's not big at all. That's great. All right. So, I just want to get out the tape measure, and I'm doing a centre-to-centre measurement here. And I get, and this is a little rough, but 145 millimetres. do you know yourself what your is?
It's around that ballpark. Yeah.
Okay. 145 millimetres. We come over and measure the saddle width. 135 millimetres. We send Alfonso out to ride his bike, as is. What's he going to be reporting within a week?
Sleepy Pete?
Reduced blood flow and nerve compression. He's going to be uncomfortable, essentially. So, how many folks have some sort of device like this in their shop? Okay. So Trek have one, Specialized have one. You can go to JBI and ProLogo have one.
How many use it?
How many use? Well, that's a good question. A lot of people don't. It's
Use it.
could it be used more? So it's probably not the first measurement you're doing when someone's coming in to buy a bike, but if they've bought a bike and you're setting it up, it's definitely a measurement that I think should be done. Because I would say 50% of the people I see in my bike fit studio, it's for issues of saddle discomfort. Why is that so? I don't resolve 100% of those people that come in, but I go a long way, and I sell a lot of saddles as a result. So for me, there's a high correlation between, I found a high correlation between sit bone width and saddle width. If I take that sit bone width of 145, my rule of thumb is to add 20 millimetres to that number for a saddle width. Now, you might have wriggled too much on that. And if in doubt, measure twice, cut once. So we might do a remeasure. But 145, 150, so 165. Either way, we're talking about a wider saddle. Because what's going to happen on this one is his sit bones are going to be off the side, and that's going to put his perineum hard down on the nose of the saddle, and that's going to compress blood vessels and nerves. Yes?
So since you start getting really technical with adding numbers, yesterday there was a vendor who was measuring the wrist.
Yes, you will hear an announcement at Sea Otter next year from WTB about a way to, instead of measuring the butt directly, to do a wrist width measurement. And they've been doing some research to correlate wrist width measurement to sit bone width. And they're doing some research there and finding some strong correlation. So a less intimate, if you like, measurement, that's easy to do. You stick out your arm, drop a caliper on the wrist, and work with that. That's going to be interesting to see in terms of how it works out. But the fundamental issue here is if there's not enough real estate in the saddle to support the rider's pelvis, the rider's going to have saddle issues. I'm measuring essentially the widest part to the widest part, and there's really three saddle profiles in terms of cross section: flat, semi-round, and rounded. The rounded ones, they're kind of a false width because they're so rounded that you don't have the same effective width as a flat saddle. I might say that the next presentation goes deep on saddles, so I don't want to get too carried away on saddles because Johnny's presentation up next drills right into that. But yeah, just the widest back on the wings. So what I'm doing here is a sit bone width, a saddle width, adding 20 millimetres doesn't match up. The answer is no. I would want to try some different saddles.
I have a question. Why guys like, talking about bone cancellare, right? They're using 134 to 87. And they, for sure, they are more muscle and more higher than these guys.
So pro level or not?
Talking pro level, but also guys that normal guys that using standard 134.7.
Yeah.
I think they're
Individuals will vary in their tolerance for pressure, so some people are more sensitive to pressure than others, and some people just some people go, well, that's part of cycling. Get used to it, tuck it up, saddle's always going to be uncomfortable. That's not my philosophy. I think there's usually things you can do about it. But I think a lot of people are riding on saddles too narrow, and they haven't questioned it, and it hasn't been giving enough problems to seek advice or to seek a bike fit on it. But there's a lot of riders out there that aren't doing well on saddles. I won't leave jumping on that. If we wanted to change saddles and some tools we could use, we could. So the best way to test out saddles is to get the rider on them. Given more time, I could drop on this tool here, a saddle changer from Bike Fit. I will take the saddle off, put this one on. I need to be able to lower the seat post 90 millimeters to accommodate the stack difference of this. And then with this thing here, we can put different saddles on and off. So when that's on there, I can just drop on a different saddle, clamp it down, and say, hey, let's jump on this saddle and see how that feels. Oh, it's not so good. Let's take that off. Let's put on another saddle. So there are tools out there that sort of work through saddles pretty quickly, or if you've got a purely custom size cycle, super easy to change saddles on that machine as well. But if you don't have a size cycle, use a relatively inexpensive tool where you can put different width saddles under the rider, have them sit on it and try it out. Okay, saddle selection. So although this comes with a nice colour scheme matched saddle, I would say this is not the saddle, and even though it matches his shirt and this looks great, it's not the saddle to send him out the door with for an enjoyable cycling experience. Next, saddle height. We want to do some saddle adjustments. We're going to say this is the right saddle, and what I want to do is do a couple of measurements and get Alfonso on here and move the seat up and down and forward and back and figure some things out. So, can you take your shoes off for me again, please? Alfonso. Now, some of you, so there's a couple of ways to do this. We can assess on the bike with leg angles, but I want an idea of a starting position from the get-go. And so I'm going to do a foot length and an inseam measure and just predict out a saddle height for this man. So I want you to come and stand on this platform for me. And slide your heels to the back. I'm just going to bring this in against your toes for a rough foot length measure. Sorry, looking at 30 centimetres. Got a long inseam, so I'll show you how this works. We're going to place this between your feet, press down on it, put it between your legs, let it come up. And then I want you to lift up on your toes and drop your toes down again. We want this little spirit level bubble in the centre. Okay. So pretty long legs, not going to take much push. Bring that forward. And just lift your heels up a little bit.
You might have ran out of, it might be too short.
So something else.
Just a little bit.
Okay, all right. So, we've got an uncommonly long specimen here, and I do have I don't have with me my extender for that. But we've got a height of, just lift up a little bit, I want to see what happens there. Yeah, 93, 94. Okay, 94 centimetres. Stay aboard for a moment. Just want to do an upper body measure. So just sit yourself upright. I want you to feel for your sternal notch. Grab a hold of this. Just move, replace your finger with that wooden finger. Just snug that in there a little bit more. Perfect. Go with that. Take that off.
Yeah, try to buy pants.
Okay, jump off that one. This is the fit kit I might say as we go here for some body measurements. Just step forward, Alfonso. I want to measure arm length while I'm at it. And grab a hold of this. I'm just going to prod the back of your shoulder here. I'll push your arm down. Bring your arm out to the side to a 45-degree angle. Just make a fist there. Excellent. Let go of that. And we'll do the other side. Grab onto that. Bring that arm up, make a fist with that hand, just measuring with your right hands, let go of that.
John, do you do on the table analysis as well?
Say again.
Do you look at on the table analysis, look at flexibility and other things besides basic measurements?
Thank you, yes. Just write that down. Okay, so one thing I haven't done yet is just ask a few more questions. Alfonso, what sort of riding do you like to do?
Road, triathlon,
Compete?
commuting,
Any competition or?
well, with myself.
Okay.
Triathlon, yeah.
Okay. Are you, would you describe yourself as more of a go out just generally keeping fit, looking at the scenery, or working on fitness and hard charging and?
Kind of more on that end.
Okay. So it's kind of a more aggressive riding style. Any spinal column injuries or shoulder injuries?
Nope.
Okay. So I want to know if he's got any sort of significant injury history. Any other injuries of note to sitting on and pedaling a bicycle? Okay. I'd just like you to do so come forward a little bit for me. I want you to bring your feet together, tighten up your quads, lock your knees out, and just do a hanging forward bend for me. And then come on up. And then do that again. And come on up. And how do you consider your flexibility generally?
Moderate to unimpressive.
All right, you're the sort of person that loosens up once the blood gets flowing, or do you? Okay. So some people are flexible all the time, and some people they have to get warmed up for a good half an hour before flexibility sets in. So we've got sort of a modest flexibility there. What I'm seeing is how far his hands came down, knee level, shin level, ankle level, palms to the floor, and he was kind of halfway there with that. So what I'm looking at is I've got some hard body measurements here of foot length, inseam length, torso length and arm length, and I want to know what else might factor into his position on the bike when we get around to setting him up on there. So is there injury history, what's flexibility like, what's his riding style like, and therefore what position might he be in?
Oh, my back was out once every 4 or 5 years on the left side, kind of near the kidney. It's a muscular thing.
Okay.
And then I do yoga for 3 months and it goes away, and then I fall out of the habit, and then 2 years later it comes back.
Okay, so we have an intermittent muscular issue here, which would be outside the realms of what we're up to here in terms of the situation, but might be something. Do you see a PT for that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, okay. So he knows to go and see a relevant health practitioner. Okay, next. Now there's an app for this, but I'm just taking a look here in my little slide chart because I like paper. All right, so I'm getting an idea that his saddle height is going to be around. Pop your shoes back on. Around. The first question is, do we have the right bike size for this man?
You bought the wrong bike.
I bought the wrong bike.
Trying to run into a fitter.
So originally I was getting a different size bike from Bianchi, and then when I showed up to pick it up, it was 2 sizes bigger, so I had to find another volunteer sight unseen. All right, so one thing to do, so I've got the bike mounted in the trainer. I've taken out these rear axles and put in a trainer skewer so that it's not going to bust out of there straight away. I've got it sitting under a purely custom wheel riser, and I've previously leveled it. And before I have Alfonso on, I want to just see that this thing doesn't pop out of here, because it's been known to happen. All right, climb aboard, sir. So I haven't set the seat height yet. I'm just going to see how it looks on there. And as I suspected, I think we can safely say that his saddle height is a little low. Just looking at his name, I don't even need to get out a goniometer or a motion capture system to say this. So let's have you climb off. And we might see if we can make a little change there. We also might run out of seat post. We'll find out soon.
Oh.
You got a lot of seat post.
Best bike footage you could love or learn.
Notable lack of carbon friction paste on here.
Nicely done.
So let's just see what we got here. Here's the insertion.
Plus,
Might be good. Oh, there. We're exceeding the manufacturer's specification here.
It looks good though.
At this stage,
Oh man, I almost bought the wrong bike. I'm so glad I came to you. You're at your shop in Utah. I'm gonna buy the other bike.
my first impression here is that we actually have the wrong frame size for this van. And I don't see that too often out of bike shops, but I've seen it twice this year, where people have come in for a fit having recently purchased a new bike. And we do some measurements and we get them on it, and it's pretty black and white obvious from the get-go that doesn't matter what I do, it's never going to work. So it is rare, but it does happen that we get a customer with the wrong frame size. So we'll work with what we've got for a moment. All right, climb the board, my man. And turn the pedals for me. Might be still a little low, or it might not. Now, according to some people in fitting land, these are extinct. They still exist. There's some over there on the table. I've got one here. That's a goniometer. It's an extendable one. They've got angles marked inside them. And unless you have a 2D motion capture system, this is still a good way to do a little bit of leg angle. It's still a valid body measurement tool. So there's a couple of ways to do this. Some people use crank arm at bottom dead center. I tend to use more full leg extension, which is a little forward of that. That's going to change the sort of angle you're looking for. We're looking from outside of the ankle to center of knee joint to greater trochanter or hip, which is pretty well going to be bisecting the line of the quad. So you don't necessarily have to get in there and poke at it. If we just bisect the thigh, we're going to be pretty close to that.
Do you find that it's important to have the cyclists at the right hip flexion? Like if I set up, does that impact the measurement enough to where I should be concerned with that as the fitter?
Not for our purpose, in just an initial setup here. So I have there's two ways to measure leg angle. We could look at the angle along the inside here, or we could look at it set back from 180 degrees, which is what's commonly used. So when people talk about a 35 or 40 degree leg angle, they're talking about how far back is the ankle compared to if the leg was absolutely 180 degrees straight. So 35 or 40 degrees back. And I got there an angle of do that again. The other thing I want to do is, so pedal for me for a moment, I want to capture, so this is a static measurement, and the downside of static measurement is you're not capturing muscle action or pedaling style, and so I want to see what's he doing with his toes and his heel as he's pedaling. I want to try and sort of freeze frame that to get a more accurate measurement. So what will commonly happen is people will come to a stop and they'll drop their heel, and then you're getting a different leg angle measurement compared to what they're normally doing. So come to a stop for me, Alfonso, just roll that forward. He's doing a great job here of not dropping his heel or changing his angle. And I'm not trying to get this to the degree. I'm trying to get it in a ballpark that's good enough to send them out the door with a view to, at this stage, prevent problems. I'm not trying to optimize power delivery or efficiency. I'm trying to prevent an issue. And so I'm looking at a range there. And I like what I see. I'm also looking at him. I tend to use my eyeballs a lot, and not just the goniometer, but I think he's looking good there. And I just took that measurement based on I set that seat height based on his foot length and his leg length, and just set that in there. And I'm getting him on there, and I'm just confirming, yep, that looks good. Good enough for our purpose. We're not trying to solve the problem, we're just trying to prevent one. So, second thing is, we've got a seat height, what about the setback, the fore after the saddle? There's the often touted Neo pedal spindle. That's not a driver fit, that's not something to aim for, but it can be an indicator, as if if things are close or if they're way out. So I'm not trying to achieve Neo pedal spindle, but I may look at it just for an idea, and then I want to come to something a little more different. So we could use a plumb bob. They still exist, they're not extinct. We can go to a digital plumb bob, which is a laser level. This is like sexier, got more of a crowd pleaser. So just bring your right crank arm facing forward horizontal to the ground.
My right crank arm?
Right crank arm. So I've got his right crank arm horizontal. I'm just sighting this laser through the right pedal axle there. And I just want to see where he is here. So I'm just seeing where the laser line bisects or doesn't his knees, about 2 centimetres back. That's not bad. It's going to be plus or minus 2 centimetres, roughly. But really what we're after here is the rider centred on the bike? And is there centre of mass down through the bike frame? That's really what we want to know. So I'm going to do a little exercise with you on the bike. I want you with your fingers to hold the hoods bridged up like this. Like so, yes. And with your cranks horizontal, I want you just to pressure your pedals and just float your butt an inch or two off the seat. So I just want him sort of floating off the seat. I want you to move forward and back slightly until there's no pull or push in your fingers. Straighten your arms out a little more so I'm locked but just a little bend. And I want you to float there until you're not using your hands to hold the position. And when you find that position, I want you to drop vertically down on the saddle and start pedaling.
Well, the nose of the saddle is in the wrong spot now.
Okay, so where did you land on the saddle?
Okay,
Let's do that again.
well, I can tell you, I just need to describe it. So this is just right on the T.
Okay.
And this has not touched my body at all.
Okay, all right. So this is excellent. It's very informative. You don't usually get this much information. This is great. Let's repeat that. So what I want to do here is I want to get the rider's centre of mass down through the bottom bracket, and I want the saddle to come up and meet and greet the rider in a good position when they're balanced over the bike. And this doesn't matter if it's road, gravel, mountain. This still applies. So we've got the cranks horizontal. We want you really just in a levitated road position, so not that much bend in your arms. So it'll be a normal kind of riding position. Up balancing on his fingertips. And I want you to pay attention to where you land on the saddle when you find that point of balance and come down. And I can see he's landing forward, and you feel like you're coming down on the nose.
Is this like Cancellara, right?
So, what's that tell us about what we want to do with the saddle? We want to push it forward. Okay. So, we can go through this exercise and repeat this a few times. So, that initial Neo pedal spindle said he was back 2 centimetres. We're doing this balance test on the bike. He's landing on the nose. So, we've got a couple of bits of evidence to say, let's shift this saddle forward and bring it more under him. So, when he drops down on it, it's coming up and supporting you in a positive experience. Okay. So we can also have a look at the current setup, and we can see the saddle's pretty well full back on the rails. So we've got latitude to do that.
Got about 10, John.
Okay, thanks.
Do you want to talk?
Sure. Bring that forward 2 centimetres. Okay, so you don't need too much technology to do that little exercise with the person on the bike. Obviously it needs to be supported in a trainer rather than just propped against the shop counter. And what we're looking for is to, as I said, find a place where the rider's weight is primarily down through the pedals, cranks, and essentially the bottom bracket, and that the saddle comes up and supports them in a good place right there. And this is, I find, a good way just to finesse the saddle forward and back. Now, in terms of how we're measuring saddle setback, we could use again our little laser here. Run the line through the centre of the bottom bracket. Find a tape measure. See where that's bisecting, so we move it. So currently it's at like 98 millimetres. So I'm using the laser line to bisect the tape measure here to get a saddle setback. Now, saddle setback is, it's going to be somewhere between probably 3 and 10 centimetres on a standard 270 millimetre long saddle. 280 in this case. There's a loose correlation to femur length. So the longer someone's femur, the more setback there's going to be. I think we can say we've got a pretty long set of legs here. Not necessarily long femurs, but long legs. We're back at 98 millimetres here. Someone who's 5 foot nothing, it might be down to a setback of 3 centimetres. If you're dealing with a shorter style saddle, obviously those numbers are pretty irrelevant. If you've got a saddle that's 245 millimetres long, then those numbers don't make sense. That's kind of based on a standard 270 millimetre saddle. But we're really finessing here. Climb back on again.
When you speak to seat angle just a little.
Yeah. So let's have you do that exercise again, Alfonso. I'm just balancing up there. How was that time coming down the saddle?
A little bit better.
Room for more?
Room for more, yeah.
Okay.
But definitely not as immediately catastrophic.
Okay, so we're getting closer. Step off. So we have a bit more saddle here.
I got a question. So as you move that saddle forward, should you measure saddle height again? Because
Yeah.
it seemed like it's dropping down.
So correct. We move the saddle forward, that's effectively lowered the seat height, we should bring that up again, that effectively takes the saddle back. So there's this kind of to and fro of what do we do. I'm sort of working on bigger chunks rather than finessing here at present. Now, we've still got a bit of rail to go, so let's have you move that forward. And at the same time, we might say, part of the issue might be the saddle angle. So what's our saddle angle here? It's good to be able to measure that. You can drop on a saddle plate. I've got one here, purely custom. We've got a nice one over there. Take a look at that afterwards. Down 4.2 degrees. How's that sound in terms of tilt? Little nose down. So, rule of thumb is going to be level, but it very much depends on the shape and style of the saddle. But close to level. So, got a bench on that for a moment. I like to keep talking.
Yep.
So we want to move it forward a little. Now this might be a case, in some situations we've got a setback seat post here, we might run out of saddle rail and we might have to go to a zero offset seat post. We might have a challenge on this bike because it's got a profiled seat post. It's going to be hard to pull off a zero offset out of the shop and put it on there. But that's something I'm doing often in bike fixes, changing the setback of the saddle post to get the seat in the right place.
Is there any subtleties to a fit or a trial on a bike?
Yes, that balance test is irrelevant because a lot more weight's on the hands. So it's more driven by hip angles and body angles rather than centre of mass on a tri or TT bike. What have we done with the saddle angle this time, Alfonso? 3 degrees. I would be bringing it up a little bit more effectively, but let's have you climb on and try that setback. So these are some of the things that you you could be paying attention to in this initial bike setup on a new bike is the seat height, the setback, the angle. So there's three primary positional changes we want to get here. Okay, so better meet and greet. Better meet and greet.
Yeah, still not good.
Okay.
But I would imagine that's the side of itself.
Okay.
But
And
yeah.
you're also not in cycling shorts, so we're feeling extra pressure there because it's not in cycling kit. Okay. I'm going to hold on the saddle for a moment. Handlebars. We had a handlebar question earlier. Climb off the bike again. It's got multiple dismount techniques. I'd like to measure your shoulder width. So, tape measure, person, I'd like to measure your shoulders across the back of the there. And where I'm going to is from a chromium to a chromium. Now, if you're not sure where that is, just roll the hand around the back of your shoulder, zoom, and you'll bump into a bone just off the back and around the end of your acromion. So, good to find it on yourself. If you're sitting next to a friendly person, you can try and find it on theirs. But if you just bring your hand around the back of your shoulder, you should sort of bump into a bone there. That's our reference points here. So I'm just sort of feeling in on both sides. And we've got a 46 centimetre shoulder width there. And we come over and measure the bar centre to centre, and we've got a 44, which I'd expect on that bike frame size. Will that work? So the question is, shouldn't I be doing a straight measurement versus a curved one? If someone's like barrel-chested, deeper-chested, or a bit rounded, then then they may want a bit more space. So some fitting systems have a caliper that has prongs on it, and it goes in. I'm more just rolling around. If they've got a lot of kyphosis and they're really rounded, then no, I'm not fully matching that. But I am taking into account just the bulk of the person as well, and it might be that they prefer a wider handlebar if they're bigger chested and just have more bulk. Now, there was a question when Curtis was doing intro about handlebar width. Road bike, I mean, there's a good rule of thumb of going sort of 1 for 1, so shoulder width to handlebar width, plus or minus a centimetre, or potentially 2. It is individually subjective. And so this is a 44 centimetre. How did that feel when you're on there in terms of width?
Honestly, it felt like most of the bikes that I buy my size.
How about that?
Huh?
Sorry, say again.
It felt similar to pretty much every bike that I ride.
Okay.
Because I imagine that they all come with a 44.
Yeah, and 44 is the largest common size. Now, one thing, so he might be fine on a 44, he might be fine on a 46. How would we know? We put a 46 on there and try it. So we might grab a purely custom stem sizer, or a salsa one if you've got it, or a bike fit stem sizer, and we drop a stem sizer on here. And we take those handlebars out and we put in a 46 centimetre bar that's got some woods on it and is wrapped up. And we say, well, how does that feel? Now, for some people, they're like, oh, it feels the same. But for other people, it's like, oh my gosh, that is so much better. That is fabulous. I had no idea handlebars came in different sizes. Now, that doesn't matter whether you're going bigger or smaller. You know, I'm working with some people where getting a narrower handlebar, more commensurate with the shoulder width, that is the biggest breakthrough in the fitting experience that they have, is a change of handlebar width. And they had no idea there were different options available. So I have a wall of 36 to 46, and I can pull them out and we can work through them. Often someone with, say, a 46 centimetre shoulder is perfectly happy on 44. It's a rarer specimen that does like that super wide bar. But going the other way, there are a lot of people riding bars too wide and prefer a narrower one. So the common situation you'll get is a person who's long and thin on a large bike frame with a wide bar, but they they have narrow shoulders, and then vice versa, more commonly a short, stocky, typically guy, not always, on a smaller frame size. It comes with a 38 or 40 centimetre handlebar, and that person's got 44 to 46 centimetre shoulders. And then they're pedaling along, and then they have to do this in the drops, because otherwise their knees are hitting their arms. And so then you're setting up a whole chain of compensations. So attention to handlebar width.
Are there other things that you might see the person exhibit that would tell you that the bar width is either too narrow or too wide?
Climb back on.
Where do they feel the difference? Oh, this is a relief where?
They feel it in the shoulders and neck muscles. And so you might see one of two things. Now, he's got quite a close knee pedaling action here. If he was a knee out knee twin rider, then there might be conflict between elbows and bars.
Actually, on my road bike, when I go down like this, I can do that.
Aha, okay, so there may be reasons why to bars. But you'll often see hunching and tension up in the shoulders, being an indication of it. And people might say, well, I often get sore necks, shoulders, my traps fire up when I'm riding. Their wrist might be rolled in or out, so there might be a sort of a dropped wrist like that. Can be an indicator of a bar that's too wide for somebody. And they're trying to bring their hands closer together. They really want to narrow a handlebar. But it's a kinesthetic thing. The person has to feel it. It's going to be less what you see often and more about what they report. But unless you put the option in front of them, they're not going to know. Okay. I quickly want to look at other body angles. I just want to do so how does Alfonso look, do we think, in terms of reach and drop? I haven't touched reach and drop yet. But there may be argument to change out the stem. And back angle, there's no absolute on back angle. It's going to vary depending on flexibility, riding style, core strength, experience. So this angle here. But we do want to see relaxed elbows, not locked out. Person should be able to flex their elbows. And something else I want to do is have you change down into a harder gear. No, the front rail is not working, so and sit upright while you're pedaling. And then while you're pedaling, I want you to start bending forward and floating your hands out towards the bars and just see where you can hold those in space. So, nice, grab one. So what we're doing is generating core tension there by having them pedal a harder gear, having them cantilever forward, and just seeing where their hands come. Now, if his hands came out here, we might be thinking, okay, this person could be riding longer and leaner, but if their hands were floating around back up here, so just come back up through. It might be, hey, this person wants a shorter reach or a higher bar. Come to a stop. Given I'm running out of time, I want to go to one thing that is so overlooked I can't believe it. And he's probably not a great example, but bring your hands down to the bars and stretch your fingers forward. Can you reach the brake levers okay there? Easy yes. I'd say a lot of folks I see coming the door, they can't reach the brake levers from the drops, and they say, well, I don't ride in the drops because I can't reach the brake levers. And so,
or even in the hoods.
what happens here is we pop open the hood, obviously depending on the brand and the model and what's going on, and we drop this in, put it in there, wrong size, pop the hood cover back, drop a tool in there, start winding that, bring your hands down here. I was like, how's that? And they're like, I can reach! I didn't know you could do that. And I'm like, that's why you're paying me the big bucks. You know? I don't think I've seen a single person come in the door for a bike fit that knew there was such a thing as lever reach adjustment. And that shouldn't be the way it is. That shouldn't be the way it is. If you're selling a bike and you're setting it up, this is a small but vitally important adjustment to make so that the person can reach reach the brake levers. And most but not all have some sort of reach adjustment these days, whether it's cable activated or hydraulic.
Another thing related to that I see all the time is bikes coming in where the reason they can't reach the levers is because the handlebars are rotated up.
Right.
And my impression is that a lot of shops are doing that as kind of a quick, cheap way to make the reach seem shorter because they don't want to bother with a new stem or something else. It bothers me because I thought it might not sell them a new stem.
Right.
Which is what I did. but the point being that most of the modern, more compact handlebars are set up so that the tops should be fairly level, and then the drops will also be fairly level, and the levers will face downward, not stick away from the rider, so they can actually reach it.
Yes, so there's a whole thing of, so I haven't changed this, and I haven't gone into it, but setting the angle of the bars, setting the position of the hoods. So I'll jump past that to go to a little adjustment that is just grossly overlooked in terms of setting up new bikes for riders and focus there. But we do want to do those other things first. We want to check the bar rotation, check the hood position, get even pressure distribution through the grip. We're trying to prevent numb hands here in this case, but we want to provide access to the controls from the different bar positions. Thanks, Alfonso. I'm off. As you can see, there's more to talk about, there's more to do. I just wanted to hit on a few key points here where I think there's opportunity to do better by your customers in terms of their experience. I want to come to a couple of things. Curtis mentioned medicine of cycling before. He's just going back to the PowerPoint. Thanks, Curtis. So, Medicine of Cycling got together a bunch of fitters some years ago, put together something called the Bike Fit Consensus Statement. If you find medicineofcycling.com, get into the Cycling Research Library, you'll find various things including that. That kind of gives an overview process of step by step what you might be working through. Not nitty-gritty of exact angles and things, but asking questions of the rider, doing a flexibility assessment, working through cleat position, saddle height, addressing handlebar. So it's a good overview document of a generally sort of industry-agreed fit procedure. How do you implement some of this? I didn't do my normal process here with this because I just wanted to call out key points. But there's a few ways. One way you could do this is that at the time of the bike sale, you take some key measurements of the person to determine if the saddle and the handlebars and the stem are an appropriate size for that rider. And then you set a time for the rider to come back, and in the meantime, you make those changes, potentially, and you're doing a mechanical check of the bike, and you're making sure the seat post has assembly post on it, and everything's torqued up, and then you have the person come back in their cycling kit, and you work through that cleat position and rotation, and fine-tune saddle position and handlebars. So in some ways there's an opportunity to have the customer back and have a short dedicated half-hour or hour to really sort of dialing that in. Because when most people show up in a shop to buy a bike, they don't have their cycling shoes, they don't have their cycling kit with them, and there's things that may need changing on the bike. There's a multitude of other ways you can implement this, but one idea is to think of it as a two-step process. You know, the bike sizing and selection, and then the component modifying and that initial setup. Now that could be a fee for service, it could be a value add to the bike sale. There's different business models in terms of how you might go about that. The key thing for me is that you're not selling a bike. You think you're in the business of selling a bike, but that's not the business you're actually in. You're in the business of selling an experience. And I come back to what I opened with, if that experience is not positive and enjoyable for that cyclist, then they're not going to continue to be a cyclist. And you have to go above and beyond the transactional side of selling a bike and think about what are the needs of the person riding it, what's their experience going to be, and what can I do to make that more positive. And this whole idea of an initial bike setup is to do more things to provide for a better experience, a more enjoyable ride from the get-go. and reduce the number of customers coming to see me because of, a sore butt, or genitals going numb, or numb hands, or can't reach the levers. Bike shops have a great opportunity to lift the number of stars they're getting for that initial bike fit setup. I'm not expecting, and it's unrealistic to think that every bike shop's going to adopt a full fit first business model. Some will do that, but many won't. There's constraints in labour, investment, expertise. But I think there is opportunity for every bike shop to be lifting the standard of how a bike rolls out the door in terms of contact point selection and setup for that person. So you don't have to be a physical therapist, you don't have to have advanced bike fit training, you don't have to solve every problem that comes in the door, but I think you can prevent a lot of problems rolling out by just paying attention to some of those smaller details from the outset. There's a couple of ways you can get in touch with me. If last year's presentation was much more kind of angles and numbers and process, you can find that on that website on the bottom of the slide. Should we be successful in videotaping this one, I'll load that up on that same website here within a couple of weeks so you can review it. I don't have a booth, but I'm going to be here at the end of this. We're going to have a Q&A after Johnny's presentation. We're going to have a Q&A, so if there's more questions, if you can hold them to then, we'll dig into it.
Awesome.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, John.